Good to be here. Always good to be here. It's your boy Matt McCucci welcoming you to a new episode of Matt's Art Chat, my regular series of podcast conversations with artists and creative people from all over the world. And on this episode, I will be speaking with CEZAR-SEVERUS Tomoroga. He is a graphic and visual artist from Romania. I met him last year and we recorded a video together this time last year for my series of videos called Matt's Long Take, where he shared a lot of his unique approaches to visual and graphic arts, particularly as far as 3D printing is concerned, which is a type of modern sculpture, you know, so very, very interesting. But a lot has happened since then, and one of the major projects that he has been working on was he has published a novel that he defines as autobiographical. And so we talk a lot about that. But another thing that has been interesting for me producing these podcasts during the quarantine period is that it's been interesting for me to see how artists and creative people are responding to the quarantine / lockdown, whatever you want to call it. And while I'm currently myself a little frustrated with everything that's going on, my inability to sort of even upgrade my equipment because it's impossible for me to get stuff shipped over to wherever I am at any given time, and also to just go outside and get a new cable, or even just the fact that I've had to extend my stay in Prague, you know, all of these different things, and then all of these events that I was supposed to cover in different parts of the world have been cancelled. You know, it's definitely crazy times and I'm definitely frustrated with them. But producing content is allowing me to see how other people are responding to it, especially within the art fields. And as you will hear in this conversation, Caesar's response to quarantine / lockdown has definitely been a positive one. So hearing that from him is pretty reassuring to me. And, you know, definitely interesting because different people react in different ways. But it definitely helps me see things in a different way. So, you know, I hope you are doing well, whoever is listening / watching this. And if you're not, I hope you get well soon, both physically and mentally. But in the meantime, without further ado, here is my conversation with CEZAR-SEVERUS Tomoroga. So enjoy.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, Caesar. Good to hear you again. How are you doing?
Pretty well. Hope you're doing well as well.
Yeah. You are in Cluj, I presume.
Still in Cluj, still in quarantine.
In quarantine, right? Crazy times that we're living in, right?
Pretty fun times.
Well, first of all, let me just to get an idea, because every country right now is dealing with the situation in different ways. Are you in lockdown at the moment there?
Yeah, Romania is still in lockdown. We're expected to be in lockdown until 15 May.
Yeah. How are you personally dealing with the lockdown?
I'm loving the lockdown. It's work from home, gives me time for all the projects I had in mind, more time with the family. My cat has actually got more attention in this period than anything else.
So you're actually dealing with it well.
Yeah.
Is it because you like to work from home? Do you usually work from home, or do you have an outside studio?
No, I have a day job, which is really the downside of being an artist. You usually work more than one job. So my day job, basically for the day job, I have to travel about 4 kilometers. It's a short drive, about half an hour in medium traffic, maybe 50 minutes in high traffic. You work in an office with a lot of people, a lot of different personalities, a lot of different nationalities. Keeps it diverse, I guess, but I'm not exactly a social person, so I prefer the idea of working from home.
You're not a social person.
Like any other person, I find myself a little bit social awkward, as in I would rather be at home where I can just be myself, lounge around. If I'm hungry, I can make something real quick and just eat it and get on with my work. don't stop the workload to take those mandatory breaks, and you don't have anybody constantly making a mess around you because they're having a difficult time with their part of the job, and you just have to bear that person next to you.
Would you say that you have always been socially awkward?
Yeah, I've always been socially awkward.
So including when you were in school, would you say that you were socially awkward in school? Did you like school?
Including when I was in general school, when I was in high school, I was always the socially awkward penguin. In high school, I was the guy dressed in leather with a leather jacket that looked like it came out of the movie Matrix. So yeah, I was the awkward one.
Were you a fan of the Matrix?
Love the movie, love the philosophy behind it even more.
What? How come? What do you like about it?
The idea of the existential plane being an illusion, and if you really think about it, we are getting to the point where we can simulate something close to being alive. So the fear is becoming more and more eerie as time goes by.
Do you think that like there's you can see some of the themes that were dealt with in the Matrix in the current situation with the lockdown and the coronavirus and the pandemic?
Well, you can see one theme being predominant from that movie, as in you're all a part of a system and you have to do as the system says, but close to it more for people that like to go outside and have a lot of fun times in the clubs. I have one colleague from work which is really having a bad time with this lockdown. He's going through a withdrawal period from clubbing, and every day he literally needs to contact everybody from the team just to say something, because otherwise he starts shaking.
Yeah, are you serious? Is
that's
that real?
really real for him. He was the type of person that would come to work after a night of clubbing, stay at work, go home, sleep maybe 4 hours, and then he was immediately back in the club.
But is it like a form of alcoholism or actually addicted to the lifestyle?
Addicted to the lifestyle. He doesn't drink.
Cesar, do you this inspires me to ask you a question. Do you think that you are addicted to something?
Cigarettes.
All right.
Coffee. Books.
Well, books
mainly in that order.
Well, cigarettes and coffee, there's a lot of people who are addicted to that. I feel like I am over-caffeinated in these days, and I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But does coffee work for you? I mean, what do you hope to get out of drinking coffee? Is it just staying awake or something else? Does it give you comfort?
The staying awake part, it's not mainly for me. Since I got a little bit of back pain since I was about 11, staying awake is natural for me. It's mainly the taste, it's the sensation, the brew, the smell of coffee.
Yeah.
As in, I don't have to drink it, but I have to have it nearby me so I can smell it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And you've had back pain since you were 11?
Since I turned 11, I started having back pains, and they got worse and worse.
But having said that, you don't go to sleep until late, till the early hours of the morning, right?
Yeah.
How?
Normally 6 o'clock in the morning. Earliest I go to bed is 5 a.m. Latest 9.
And last night, you were telling me while we were texting, you went to sleep at around 7 o'clock in the morning. What were you doing up until then?
Well, got off at work at 12 midnight, so until 3, just housework. After that, internet, YouTube, writing, normal stuff.
Ah, yeah. Where are you finding your inspiration nowadays?
Well, the inspiration is still there. I still have to finish a lot of projects. The main thing that I'm finding nowadays is a lot of time for them.
You like to work on your own time, do you?
Doesn't everybody?
Well, some people like to have the restrictions. There were many art movements that began with a manifesto that laid down rules that all artists had to abide to, and I think that also helped their creativity. But you would belong to another class of artists who prefer not to have rules?
I would say so, mainly because I'm the type of person that if I get a very wild idea, doesn't matter where I am, I have to start sketching it out or just laying it down on paper so I don't miss it.
So you try to... Do you think that helps you evolve your personal and individual style?
I think that played a major role in it so far, but what helps me evolve my individual style is trial and error. As in, I'll start doing something, I'll sketch something out. Maybe I'll like it, maybe I won't. But I won't quit on the idea until I get it to the point where I like it.
You know, it's funny that you say that trial and error is important in the evolution of your work, because I was recently speaking with an art educator, and he said that what he has noticed throughout art history is that most of the artists who are celebrated or beloved nowadays, one of the things that they had in common was that they weren't afraid to destroy their own work. They didn't want to love their work, because if they were too attached to it, then they would lose that distance that they might need.
Exactly.
Do you feel the same way?
Once you get too attached to a piece of work, you can't sell it, you can't part with it. It becomes a part of you, and you just lose yourself in the work. You have to get it to the point where it's standalone and it just flies out of you.
But what is your definition of an artist? To you, what would being an artist entail?
I actually tried to cover that in the book. The problem with that is that I don't like labels. So, for example, there was a chapter in the book where I tackled this part. I have a friend who defined it perfectly, as in I couldn't find the words for it, but he found it on the spot. We were visiting him, and since my relationship with Christine was just starting, she was a bit, let's say, starstruck when she got invited to go to his home. He had so many art presentations, a couple of movies, a few nominations. Basically, it was like taking a kid to Comic-Con. And once we were there, we sat down, and she was still starstruck. She was a little bit shaking, not much. I don't want to say much because I have to live with her. But at that point, I just looked over at my friend, and he was like, okay, what's going on? I'm like, dude, you do know that you can no longer call yourself anything other than an animator or, let's say, a future Tim Burton, because you're going on a very Tim Burton-esque path. And he was like, no, the best thing I could say about myself would be that I'm a doodler. And even that would be a stretch, as in I do maybe 50 pages of random sketches. Everything is harshly made. I don't find myself at the point where I can call myself an artist.
Do you feel the same way?
And that is actually the best definition. Yeah, that is the best definition. I don't think of myself as a designer, as an artist. I don't even see myself as a 3D designer, although mainly I work in 3D. I just find myself at that point where I would say that maybe I'm a sketch artist, maybe, but mostly I would say that I'm a doodler, a rough artist, an artist in the making. I don't find myself at the point where I could call myself a designer. Because once I label it, it's not really that. As in, the best artists that I know don't think of themselves as artists. They think of themselves as passionate about their subject, and the work just comes out perfectly. The worst artist that I know calls himself a designer, and boy, that kid needs some work.
Really?
Yeah.
Speaking of starstruck, were you ever starstruck? Did you ever feel like that?
Never felt starstruck in my life. Still waiting for that moment. Maybe I'll get to meet Vin Diesel since I'm a fan. And maybe at that point I will be starstruck.
Why are you a fan of Vin Diesel, yeah? You said Vin Diesel?
Yeah, Vin Diesel.
Why are you a fan?
Why I'm a fan of Vin Diesel as an actor? He had a rough start. As in, if you go a bit into his biography, he started out by breaking into a theater. And I found that to be incredibly poetic. When you think about having a career as an actor, you break into a theater when you're 16. The theater owner says, okay, for the damages, you're going to work here in the theater, backstage, and you're going to be an extra on a few sets, and you get hooked on it, and you just start building a life in that field. From one mistake, you make a full career out of it.
Yeah, but that sounds like a dream. I mean, I wish that had happened to me. If I'd known about it, I would have broken something in the Town Hall Theatre in Galway City.
Yeah.
Again,
when it comes,
that's what we were talking about, trial and error, right? There's always a mistake.
there's always something that gets you started on the path.
Hmm.
The only other person that I could think about that would maybe starstruck me would be Neil Gaiman, because I've read most of his work. As in, when I say most of his work, anything that I can find printed. I don't want to read Neil Gaiman digital.
Yeah.
The only thing that I actually had to endure and read digital, because Romania is really behind on comic books. And when I say really behind, comic book industry here needs a shot in the arm, couple of big names, something to get it going. There's the Sandman series, which has an incredible philosophy embedded into it. The artwork is incredible. It's diverse. He always works with some amazing talents in the field, just to deliver a message that cannot be delivered only in text.
Yeah, we talked about your kind of love of all of that in the video that we filmed last year,
Yeah.
and now we're gonna get to talk about the Klausen. I think I have a feeling that you were working on it when we were talking about it this time last year. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was working on it this time last year. It actually was finished by December, and I really did an effort to get it published right on my birthday. Wanted it to be right there when I turned 30. The moment I turn 30, I'm going to hit the button. It's published. It's done. Move on.
Wow. When did you turn 30?
December 20th last year.
Oh, just a little after me then. I was in September. I didn't do anything worthy of note, though. That's the problem. Oh, my goodness. Hey, so, well, I'd love to document just you telling me a little bit about this. Would you call it a book? What exactly, how would you define this project? Because it's a little different.
This project I would define as a little bit of the mess that's in my head. So it's autobiographical. I wanted to combine the effort that goes into making a book the old school way, as in the book actually started with pen and paper in a big notebook that I got as a gift from Christine about maybe 3 years ago. It just sat there blank for about, I don't know, maybe half a year. As in, I didn't touch it. I knew the moment that I saw those pages that I have to fill those pages with something that I would be satisfied with. As in, it's not going to be a random sketchbook. I can't make it into a logo book. It's not going to be something that I'm going to discard later on.
How long did it take you to put it together, basically? How long ago were the first sketches that made it into the book or influenced the book from?
Oh, the first sketches. There's a sketch there that's actually a self-portrait of me early in the morning. As in, that's literally the first thing I do the moment I wake up. I cross my legs and I light up a cigar. As in, I'm barely out of bed. I'm just sitting on the edge and the cigar is already present, somehow by magic in my mouth. That sketch was made in 2005, maybe 2004.
Wow. Were you already smoking cigars in 2004?
I've been smoking since I was 14.
Damn. But when you say there's a narrative element to this work, and when you say that it's autobiographical or semi-autobiographical, obviously there's fictional elements in there as well, some of which are more marked than others. But where exactly in your mind does the line between reality and fiction fall in this work?
That's the odd part. The fictional part, the parts that you seem to find fictional, are actually me trying to avoid naming names in that part.
Really?
Yeah. I have a lot of friends that really didn't want to be a part of that project. And I also have a friend who has finished law school, and he said, well, you have to avoid naming names if you don't want me to get you into court, because I'm part of that book and I identified the chapter that you put me in.
Wait a minute.
I said, okay, I'm going to avoid all that, and I'm just going to present the story as it is, avoiding names. And if you feel like it's offensive, I'm glad that I didn't name you because I know that you would actually drag me into court.
So within this book, you actually talk quite candidly about your experiences?
Very candidly about my experiences and a lot of the philosophy that I incorporated along the way and along the years. As in, there's a part there that I'm talking about an actual event that happened to me in Germany, where I really got in touch with my inner self. I was on a long stretch of road leading towards the airport. And when I say a long stretch of road, that road was almost 80 kilometers long.
What do you mean getting in touch with your inner self?
Getting in touch with my inner self, well, think about it like this. The story goes like this. I was there for a team building and a few conferences that we have with the company. Got to meet a lot of people, and unfortunately, at such events, there's a lot of drinking involved. So by the time the events were done, I was half drunk, very tired, didn't eat anything. At that point, my assistant at the time comes towards me in a rush. And whenever I saw that person rushing towards something, I said to myself, okay, this is going to be horrible. Let me have it. And he made a mistake. His first mistake as my assistant in almost 2 years. He confused the hour for my flight. When he sent the email, he sent the hour as being 7 p.m. It was actually 7 a.m. So I looked at my phone and I had 5 hours to get cross country toward Dortmund. I was in Frankfurt at the time to make my flight, which was fun. Nothing else can be said except that experience was fun. Dehydrated, unfed, last few cigarettes in the pack, just the money in my pocket and the laptop that was in my briefcase. Rush towards the train station, grab a train, get to Dortmund. By the time I got into Dortmund, it was already 3 a.m. And at that point in Germany, you can't find a cab, there are no buses, and there's nothing on any street. It's just you and the long stretch of road ahead of you. So I opened up my phone, I had about 30% battery left. Turned on Google Maps, saw the road. The road said that I would make it there by 7:30 a.m. So I had to rush for it. And at one point, the road actually curved into a patch of protected forest in Dortmund. And when I say a patch of forest, I mean the road itself was still gravel, pavement as usual, next to it. But everything around you was literally forest. And you could hear a few wolves. So at that point where you're dehydrated and you haven't slept in a couple of days, your body just goes a little bit on autopilot. And then you push a bit above that point and you find yourself where I was. I was literally just laughing as my feet were going forward. I was so tired. I don't know where I got the strength to actually make the flight on time.
Oh, you made it.
Yeah, I made it and the flight got delayed by 4 hours. That was the most funniest thing I've ever had happen to me in my entire life. I was there sitting on that bench in the airport, just looking at the flight schedule getting delayed once, twice, thrice, and I was like, oh God, I'm going to die here. I haven't slept at that point in almost 2 days. Didn't eat anything in 2 days. By the time I got on the flight, the moment that I sat down in my seat, I fell asleep. I woke up back in Cluj, and the guy sitting next to me was looking at me like, you snored the entire way here. And I was a little bit embarrassed, but I did not care. I was so tired. Got home, forgot my keys. That's the main thing. I forgot my keys to my own apartment. So I had to break into my own apartment the moment that I got home. Fun experience.
Yeah, definitely an experience that changes you.
And that made its way into the book because at that point I started thinking about what's really underneath all of this. As in, if I eliminate everything that I think about myself, what am I? And the answer came from that moment. I'm the type of person that will just push on regardless of the pain, regardless of the cost, and just get it there on time because that's the schedule.
All right.
And that's my core.
So if I can just like do a little PR for this book here, this is a collection of your experiences, not only as an artist but also as a human being.
Yeah.
And I looked at it, and not only does it tell your story, but also there's plenty of sketches and drawings. And I found that the layout of it is equally important as the story itself. Would I be right in saying that?
I spent about 2 weeks thinking about the layout itself and about a month going through fonts, everything that I had in the collection. I really wanted the book on the print version, on the digital version, to resemble something that was made with dedication. I didn't want something just to be published. I wanted something that was a work of art done by somebody that really wanted to do that work of art.
Yeah. Like, for example, some of the sketches and drawings, the text wraps around it, so it's not printed as if as the traditional book would be.
Yep.
And so the book is called The Clausen. Where does the Clausen come from? And also, is it called The Clausen Alchemist Old Puppet, or are they three separate titles, or what's the story
Clausen
with that?
Alchemist would be the main title. Alchemist. The Old Puppet would be the name of the book.
Ah.
Clausen comes actually from the name of Cluj in Germany.
Oh.
So Cluj in German would be Klausenburg. So I went from that idea. I came from this town. I was born here.
Yeah.
Everything that I learned would be the equivalent of what somebody that would call himself an alchemist would be. As in, I learned a little bit about medicine. I learned a little bit about biology, a lot about chemistry, then went into the arts, went into sociology, IT. It wasn't just one path, one career, one single thing crammed into my head. And everything that I do basically comes from all these different sources. So it's a little bit of alchemy there.
Oh, right. So that's why you're referring to yourself as the Clausen alchemist then.
Yes.
And what about the old puppet part?
That's the autobiographical part.
Oh, yeah?
Just like an old puppet. I had to dance. I had to do my little things to make ends meet.
Well, do you still have to do that?
A lot of philosophy. I still have to do them. I still have a day job.
Is that necessary to maintain a level of independence when you're actually doing stuff that you would consider artwork?
Without it, quite frankly, I doubt I could even afford my living space.
Yeah, I hear you. That's a problem that I think that a lot of people can relate to.
Unfortunately, it's the sad truth about being an artist nowadays. Unless you get the odd chance to be discovered and have something sold for 50,000 euros and above, not much else you can do. Oh. But even then, you have to pay taxes.
Well, or the other thing that can happen is you can compromise your personal vision. You can just let other people say what you do, and that way, I don't know whether that would be considered as art anymore, but I see a lot of things that are treated as art that I don't know. I wouldn't be rushed to call it art per se.
I would make a lot of comments about that, but I'm still thinking about a few friends that have finished law school and all their advice.
Oh, is that the person you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, that's the person that I mentioned earlier.
We don't have to get controversial.
And also on a famous controversial topic, a banana taped to a wall type of topic.
You know, I don't even know what the deal with that was. That was a huge deal, but I feel like ever since the pandemic, things like that have just become so ridiculous to me that it almost seems like it was part of the old world. What did you think of it? Was it something that shocked you, surprised you? What was your reaction to that?
It didn't shock me at all. It didn't surprise me at all. It's basically just something that can be sold. It's an idea.
Yeah.
And when you're selling an idea, in my opinion, you cannot call an idea art. art comes from the effort.
Well,
It comes from a little bit of talent and a lot of vision.
It's a meme. It's what would be called a meme, right?
Yeah, but if we're going to name memes as art, if I ever see a meme exposed next to Mona Lisa in the Louvre, that will be the day that I decide to move to Mars. I'll just go and find Elon Musk, peg my ticket onto that bus, and just leave this planet.
You know what, Caesar? I actually think that there probably is somewhere in the world a museum that displays a meme. Besides,
but not next to the Mona Lisa.
Well, you know, the day
it's not the Louvre.
Well, let's wait and see. I'm not sure that that'll be for long. I can almost predict that it'll happen soon, that memes will be an integral part of museums. But you think it's a bad thing?
I don't doubt that, but I really, really hope that I'm not going to be around to see it.
Oh, what about your graphic design work? We spoke at great length in the video that we filmed last year about your 3D printing projects and your concepts behind this type of work. Have your techniques evolved since we last spoke? Are you experimenting with that form in any way recently?
I'm still experimenting with that form, a little bit different materials right now. Trying to see how they're going to react with a little bit more commonplace items. But in 3D printing, not much is new, especially with this pandemic situation. Orders can be made, but shipping them out, that's a little bit tricky. So the 3D printing is on the back burner for the while. In the meantime, there's another book that I've been thinking of. It's halfway through, hoping that by December it's going to be a rough sketch at least. And yet again, for this book, there are a lot of sketches that I want to get into it. There's a lot more graphic design that I want to go through. And still for the first book, I want to design a hardcover. And that hardcover, it's going to be a bit different, as in, try to picture a book that you find somewhere in an old dusty attic from, let's say, mid-1600s, but make it new.
Blending the time periods.
Blending the time periods and blending a few different design techniques on it.
I shouldn't have said blending the time periods.
Going to be
playing with the concept of time, I guess.
Playing with the concept of time, but I also want to play with the concept of numbers. As in, I've been doodling a little bit with sketches, mainly portraits at one period, where everything that was in the portrait was actually a number. So the nose was the number 4, the jaw was made out of 7s, the earlobes were made either out of 9s or 3s, and so on and so forth. And blending it towards the point where you can't actually tell that it was a number underneath until you look at it from a different angle.
This again is part of you being an alchemist, using all of these different elements and putting them together within your projects.
Yeah.
Caesar, it was great to chat with you. It was amazing. Time flew by, big time.
Very fast, Matt, as per usual. 33 minutes and counting.
Well, I thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate you taking the time. What are you going to be doing for the rest of the day now?
Probably working on the second book.
All right.
And then some housework.
All right.